Namaskar friends, this is NJ, your host on this channel, continuing our discussion on understanding the planetary presence in different houses of our astrological chart. In this video, we are going to have our discussion on the planetary presence in the 6th house. So definitely friends, this house is going to take a very strong importance in your life if your important planets are placed over here. If your moon is placed here, if your ascendant lord is placed here, if your 10th house lord is placed here, so somehow your life must be hovering around or revolving around the signification of this house only. So definitely after listening to this video, you will be able to understand the good, the bad, the vulnerable or the progressive side of this house. So now friends, if you want to understand the attributes connected with this house, so beyond doubt when we talk about the word discipline, so that comes from the 6th house only. How competitive you are, how resilient you are, how much regular and disciplined you are with your daily work life, your routines, you're dealing with the people in your daily work life. Like there are those people who do their duties, their own job, their own work with complaining, with a whining attitude, and there are those people who are always smiling, they are always on the top of all the responsibilities which has been allotted to them. So in a way friends, this is the house which represents and which tells about how serviceful you are. For any sort of concerns of debts or liabilities, we give attention to this house. For any sort of fighting spirit, when we talk about, like if your nature of work involves like you being a politician, you being a cop, you being a lawyer, you need the strong support which comes out of the 6th house. And friends, I always say this thing, beyond doubt this house is also a malefic house or the Dushtana bhav. Like 6th house, 8th house, 12th house are considered as the malefic house or the Dushtana bhav because Dushtana bhav represents suffering. But the upper edge or the competitive edge which 6th house has compared to the 8th house and the 12th house is that the problems which comes out of the 8th house and the 12th house, they are always very hidden in nature or very mystical or karmic in nature. But comparatively, when we compare the 6th house, the problems which comes out of the 6th house can be understood with a rational mind, and you can actually work towards overcoming the problems which comes out of the 6th house. And beyond doubt friends, when we talk about from the perspective of the Upachya bhav, so 6th house also is the Upachya bhav, which means the signification of this house grows with the time. So if you are actually working hard towards the signification of this 6th house, you can actually become stronger regarding the matters of this house. Because friends, like the way I always say this thing, if you're gonna compare the benefic or the malefic planetary presence in the 6th house, so the win-win situation is that if you're going to find the malefic planet like Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu, even Sun to be dignified, exalted, being placed in a friendly sign, in their own sign in the 6th house, that is a win-win situation. You are very competitive, you are very resilient, and you know how to give answer to your competitors. The losing side is if you're going to find malefic planet to be either afflicted over here, weak over here, or let's say for example, even if you will find benefic planet to be weak here, because if benefic planet is going to be placed in the 6th house and if it is weak, then definitely you will always expect a easy way out, and life doesn't work like that. Friends, try to understand this thing. This is not the house of gains, which could be the 11th house. This is not the house of speculation, which could be the 5th house. This is the house of the debts. That means you might not even realize the goodness or the kind of way you are paying back your debts, but there is no easy way out, there is no escape. This is something which is bound to happen. This is something which you have to pay back. Now when we talk about being very attentive towards the concern of your health, giving attention to your fitness, so this is not something where you have an option or an easy way out. You have to give attention to your health in order to enjoy a healthy, a good life. Otherwise you have to pay in the form of sickness or disease. Same is the way how much disciplined you are in your craft, that is going to come out as success in your life. It is going to come out as refinement in your craft. but if you're not going to pay attention to that, so definitely you will lack or you might be overcome by your competition. So that is something which we see from the matters of the sixth house, but definitely with the passage of time you can grow from this, and the kind of respect you're going to command from your juniors, from your subordinates, because many times I get this query in my consultation that all those people who have their own businesses, their workforce, the labor is always giving them problem, they're not able to retain employees under them, or all those people who are in mid management, top management, their team is never supportive of them. So the kind of relationship you have with your juniors in your daily work life, that is something which we get to know from the sixth house. And the kind of happiness you're going to derive on the account of pets, the kind of relationship you're going to have with your maternal aunts and uncles, that is something which we get to know from the sixth house. Okay, now friends, now we will try to place planets over here. So if any point of time you're going to find the presence of the sun over here in the sixth house, so again, sun being in a category of mild malefic, it all comes down to in which dignity you're going to find sun over here. If let's say for example sun is well placed over here in its own sign, exalted in a friendly sign, so definitely native knows how to be of use to the society. When we talk about attitude of being very serviceful, being very concerned, as a leader you are very much concerned towards the well-being of your teammates, you are very responsible, you are very disciplined, you have got that fighting spirit, you are a hard-working person. So that is how the energies can manifest with sun being placed in the sixth house. The good part of the malefic presence in the sixth house is that you know that there are certain duties, liabilities, responsibilities which needs to be fulfilled. So you are not going to be among those people who are always complaining, always whining. You are among those who want and who knows how to take the bull by the horns and how to work hard in any threatful, competitive, demanding situation. But let's say for example, if you're going to find sun to be afflicted over here, then it can actually create a lot of problems. Now problems could happen in the form of ego related hassle within your working environment. You might have problem with the government, problem pertaining to taxes. And because friends, beyond doubt, or no matter whether sun is your ascendant lord or not, sun in itself is a significator of your vitality. So, and sixth house also represents the concerns of the health and the illnesses as well. So sun being badly afflicted in the sixth house can also give very weak vitality as well. Concerns of tiredness, concerns around the bone related problems and all could also manifest. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example, if you are going to find the placement of moon over here in the sixth house. So friends, beyond doubt, the mere placement of moon in whichever house it is placed in, it just tells about your emotions, your feelings are attached towards the signification of that house. I always say this thing, that do not get confused with the zodiac sign placement. Planets represents the heavenly astral bodies. When we talk about zodiac sign just tells about the theme, the style, the fashion which planets are going to manifest their energy. But it's the house only where the astral bodies and on a earthly plane works in your life. So that we get to know from the house placement. So definitely friends, if you will find moon to be dignified and well placed over here, this person can actually become a true empathizer. He knows how to empathize the plight or the pain of other people. This person can become a very successful in the fields of whether you talk about medical field, nursing field, fields of psychology, health industry, restaurant industry, food industry. Native can do very good in that. The only concern over here is that if you will find moon to be afflicted over here, which is not a very good sign, then in those kind of circumstances native might get overwhelmed with the pressure of the duties and responsibilities of the daily life. The concerns of anxiety, stress related concerns can also be a matter of concern. Friends, I still remember there is a friend of mine, she's an actress. So in her chart, she is a Sagittarius ascendant, and in her case, her moon is exalted in the 6th house and it is conjunct with Jupiter as well. So like I know, because I know her for a long time, so her nature is very like she's very empathizing. You can very easily relate with her. She's like very nurturing, so she has got a very nurturing personality. So that is how the emotions can manifest, whether in the form of being in the fields of service, psychology, nursing, artistic or creative field. But yes friends, the placement of moon in the sixth house needs to be taken into consideration, that in which sign moon is placed in and which other planets are aspecting it or conjunct with it. Like for example, if you will find moon to be placed in in the Scorpio sign, moon is debilitated over there, and let's say for example if it is conjunct with Saturn, it is conjunct with Rahu, then it can give rise to your enemies always troubling you, or psychological concerns, or too much of the nervousness. So that is how energies are going to manifest. So it all comes down to in which dignity your moon is placed in the sixth house. But definitely beyond doubt, with this kind of placement, it can actually make someone a true empathizer and nourisher in any sort of given situation. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example if you're going to find the placement of Mars over here, which can be seen as a very good sign placement. But again friends, for any malefic planet to be placed over here, it all comes down to the dignity of the planet. So if you will find Mars to be placed in its own sign, being exalted in a friendly sign, so definitely it is going to give native a warrior mindset. Native is definitely going to be very disciplined, a strong fighting spirit, strong resilience. Native know how to remain on the top of any competitive situation. Native knows the notion of the hard work, the dutifulness, the loyalty, whether in the relationship, whether towards the company or the organization you are working in. So for any aspect of discipline, demonstrating fighting spirit, this placement of Mars can be seen as a very good sign. And trust me friends, with this kind of alignment, if Mars is dignified and it is getting aspected by Saturn, so definitely this could make native a defender of the downtrodden. So all those people who become a lawyer and they fight for the justice, for the true values, so that is how the energies of Mars is going to manifest over here. But let's say for example friends, over here it's a very intense way results will manifest. So either if planet is dignified, the result will manifest in a very positive way. But if the planet is afflicted, the negativity or intensity of the threat will increase manifold. So now for example, if Mars is not well placed over here, it could give concerns of quarrelsomeness, always complaining, whining on the matter of your duties, or troubles on the account of juniors, subordinates, people always trying to scam you, always trying to dominate you, bully you, even in the matters of finances or the concerns of debts and liabilities. We always say this thing, that all those people who either remain vulnerable on the account of threats, on the account of hidden enemies, or on the account of being scammed on the matters of money. You loaned someone money and that person denied returning back your money or something. So Mars is always the epicenter of all of those concerns. So if Mars being afflicted over here, you have to remain very cautious on giving or lending your money to people, because you might not be able to get back your money. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example if you're going to find the placement of Mercury over here, so definitely friends, this can be seen as a very good placement, because in the original Kal Purush Kundli, this is the house which belongs to the Virgo sign, where Mercury attains exaltation. So with this placement of Mercury over here, first of all, native is going to be a multitasker. Native is going to be very perfectionist in any chosen craft. Because friends, when we talk about the true nature of Mercury, which is very frivolous, which is very casual, which is very curious, which is very young, like a boyish attitude. And even the sign ruled by Mercury, like Gemini is a sign which is being ruled by Mercury, which also represents the equal level of playfulness. But whether we talk about sixth house or whether we talk about Virgo in general, then the life becomes serious. Aspirations and your work ethics and style demands discipline out of you, perfection out of you. So with the placement of Mercury over here, if it is going to be dignified, placed over here, unless and until it is not placed in the Cancer sign in the 6th house. Mercury holds good potential to manifest good results in the form of making you multitasker. Native knows how to get things done. Like if you are being put in a very demanding, high pressure situation, you know how to take out work from your seniors, from your juniors in any organization nature of work where there is too much of the relationship management is required. Native might be able to do justice to all of that. And apart from that, being a freelance person, being a performing artist, working with your skill, this placement of Mercury in the 6th house is definitely going to support all of those ventures, all of those endeavors. And native might also gain from friendship, from maternal uncles and aunts if Mercury is going to be well placed over here. Moving ahead, friends. Now let's say for example, if you're going to find the placement of Jupiter over here. So definitely friends, the placement of Jupiter can be seen as a good sign in this regard that, see, Jupiter is the significator of wisdom and righteousness. Definitely, beyond doubt, this is the house where Jupiter is not at peace. But again, it all comes down to in which dignity Jupiter is placed over here. If you will find Jupiter to be placed in its own sign, in a friendly sign, then native knows how to gracefully handle any disputed situation rather than losing out on your morals, losing out on all the convictions and ethics or philosophies of yours. Native knows how to stay firm in the side of the righteousness, like all those people who knows that at the end it's the truth only which triumphs. Truth cannot get or stay hidden from the eyes of the world. So that kind of philosophy, that kind of mindset native might use. And like the way I have already mentioned this thing, if Jupiter is going to be well placed over here, it can also give success in the fields of anything to do with law, anything to do with the medical field, nursing field, pharmaceutical fields, teaching, lecturership, becoming a professor, lecturer. So this placement of Jupiter in the 6th house can be seen as a very good sign. Again friends, when we talk about the remedies aspect, so it becomes very important with the placement of Jupiter, and if it is going to be dignified over here, that always have this helpful attitude towards all those people who are suffering in any way in the society. And yes friends, with this kind of placement, I would say that because whenever we talk about any sort of remedial aspect, so see, astrology is one aspect of understanding the planetary presence in your life. The way the vibration of the planets bases the deeds which you have accumulated from the past so many lifetimes. Your chart in this lifetime is the blueprint of the deeds done by you in the past lifetimes only. But when we talk about the remedial aspect, that is a different thing. Like the way when we talk about in medicine. So doctor's job is to give you the diagnosis of your problem. After that, you are free to follow Ayurveda or allopathy or homeopathy or any acupuncture, any form of treatment for your problem. So that is the point which I am trying to say over here, is that your astrological chart or the placement of Jupiter over here, if it is giving you problem, the best remedy which can work for you is the path of the worship, devotion and religion. With some other affliction in some other house, you might have an easy way out just by wearing gemstone or doing any other thing, like even making donations. But when we talk about Jupiter to be afflicted in the 6th house, specifically seeking the path of devotion, worship and seeking refuge in religion, the universal consciousness can be seen as the right way of making peace or amendments with the energies of Jupiter in the 6th house. Because friends, as you know, Jupiter is the significator of expansion. If its energies are not working in a graceful, in a dignified way in the 6th house, and it is a very important planet for you, if it's your ascendant lord, your moon is placed over here conjunct with Jupiter, Jupiter is your 10th house lord, it's not very well placed over here, then in those kind of circumstances, doing the remedies and the religious and the godly remedies connected with the 6th house for Jupiter becomes more important for you. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example, if you are going to find the placement of Venus over here. So friends, as you know this thing that Venus is the significator of enjoyment, pleasures, worldly accomplishments, all sort of luxury. So in the original Kalpurush Kundli, this is the house where Venus attains debilitation, because Venus doesn't like to be always surrounded by the pressure of duties and responsibilities, where there is no time for fun, for enjoyment. But the concern over here is that if you're going to find Venus to be dignified over here, like Venus is placed in its own sign, in Mercurian signs, or conjunct with in such an alignment that its energies can manifest good results, then with this placement of Venus in the 6th house, it can make you a very good diplomat, it can make you a very good arbitrator, any sort of PR connected field, even in the fields of medicine or nursing, in the restaurant business, you can do very good, you can succeed because of your good relationship management or a very calm, diplomatic or poised approach in the face of any dispute or conflict. And apart from that, friends, but the true nectar of happiness with this placement of Venus can only be acquired through being of service to other people. That is the only one thing which I want to say with the placement of Venus in the 6th house. Moving ahead, friends, now let's say, for example, if you are going to find the placement of Saturn in the 6th house. So definitely, friends, this can be seen as one of the very good placement of Saturn to be placed in. I always say this thing, that when we talk about Saturn, there are 3 things which you always have to remember. The first thing is that your goals have to be very, very high set, because it's Saturn only which holds the potential of giving you something massive, something very big, something very substantial. The second thing is that there always has to be a approach and attitude of humbleness and being of service. The philanthropic and humanitarian approach has to be there, and 6th house in a way represents service. So because of that, that's the second thing. And the third point is that of being patient and calm, because Saturn, wheresoever it is placed in, like no matter whether Saturn is placed in the 7th house, in the 10th house or 11th house, test, trials and responsibilities come in that area of life, and 6th house in itself represents conflicts or struggle or competition. So because of which, definitely Saturn, specifically in the first half of the life, whether Saturn is conjunct over here, being your moon sign lord, being your ascendant lord, being your 10th house lord, Saturn being placed in the 6th house, and if you are also running through the dasha of the Saturn, so first half of life might be filled with all sort of practical experiences, struggle, being deprived of all the opportunities. But again, it all comes down to the kind of psychological state you have, the kind of approach, attitude you have, the kind of wisdom you are going to derive out of all those struggle. Because friends, the outer circumstances or wind is always the same. It all depends on the individual's sail. So the point which I am trying to make over here is that there could be all those psychological getaway or take away that 2 people face the same degree and intensity of misery or difficulties or problems. One person took the moral out of it that, okay, just because I faced so much suffering, so I should become a healer and I should not let anyone else to suffer the same pain which I endured. But there could be another person B who might take a different route. He says, okay, just because I had so much suffering and misery, so the whole world should deserve the same. I should inflict the other people with the same sort of misery which I faced. So it all comes down to our own psychological a breakdown of the pain and sorrow which we have gone through. So that is how your life will be tested, that how humble you become, how serviceful you become out of all the misery and the struggle Saturn is going to put you through in the first half of the life. So that is the kind of learning which comes out of this. And definitely friends, in order to become a successful cop, a lawyer, a politician, being in any medical industry, or being a leader, a true leader which is being loved by the masses, by the followers, this placement of Saturn can be seen as a very good sign. It is definitely going to impart hardworking approach, being very disciplined, being very consistent, being very patient. So all these qualities are going to come in the personality of someone who is going to have Saturn to be placed in the 6th house. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example, if you're going to find the placement of Rahu over here. So definitely friends, this is one of the Upachya Bhav where Rahu is considered as very dignified, because Rahu has got a very diplomatic, a very street smart way of functioning. So with the placement of Rahu in the 6th house, definitely native know how to understand and foresee the moves of the competition, how to manipulate, how to command respect in any sort of conflicting situation. Whether you talk about diplomacy, whether you talk about out of the box way of thinking, being very innovative. So this placement of Rahu in the 6th house holds the potential, holds the key of manifesting very good results. Definitely friends, with this kind of placement, native can become a very good diplomat, very good arbitrator. Native can also become a very good politician with this placement of Rahu in the 6th house. But again friends, like the way I said this thing, that 6th house in a way is a karmic house, that it is also an upachya bhav. It grows with the time and manifests and returns the results accordingly. So with this placement of Rahu in the 6th house, if native is going to have an approach of manipulating people or using deception only for the self-interest at the cost of harming or inflicting pain on other people's life, then in the later half of the life, problems in the form of concerns of debts, fear on the count of hidden enemies, undiagnosed diseases. So that is how the energy can also manifest. The karmic retribution can also take place. So it becomes very important that Rahu should be dignified and native's mindset should be only used in a defensive way or in a progressive way rather than creating havoc in other people's life. Definitely friends, with this placement of Rahu in the 6th house, the worship of goddess Saraswati, worship of Lord Ganesha, and the individual placement of Mercury in the chart is going to give us this idea that in which direction native is going to make use of his thinking process. But yes friends, in today's day and age, for any materialistic growth or progress or relationship management, this placement of Rahu is generally in our scriptures is considered as very good. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example, if you're going to find the placement of Ketu in the 6th house, it is a very sensitive placement, because like the way I always say this thing, all of our competition, our enemies comes out of the 6th house. The diseases comes from the 6th house. So if Ketu is not going to be well placed over here, and over and above that, natives, like if the 6th house lord is afflicted, Ketu is not well placed over here, it is conjunct with malefic planets, and natives' own actions and deeds in the society are also very questionable, then trust me friends, with this kind of placement, it can give you very, very powerful enemies. And even when we talk about in terms of health and concerns of illnesses, so it also comes down to that you might get tired of getting one checkup done after another, and you're not able to find the root cause of the problem. So with this kind of placement of Ketu in the 6th house, attitude of service, being very humble, trying to use the energies of Ketu in a constructive way, where you can actually make use of the energies of Ketu in bringing perfection in your craft. So if you are going to take that route in order to derive the best out of the Ketu energies, it can do wonders in your life. So yes friends, the placement of Ketu in the 6th house is a sensitive placement, because when we talk about Ketu does not only give results pertaining to this lifetime, but it also has an account of all the deeds done by us in the past lifetime as well. So it becomes very important, if you're going to run the dasha of the Ketu, or whenever your Ketu dasha starts, that your approach towards life has to be of serviceful, helping people, and doing the remedies connected with the Ketu is something which I want to advise with this placement of Ketu over here. Moving ahead friends, now let's say for example, if you're going to find the placement of Uranus over here. So friends, the placement of Uranus is good for all those people in whose nature of work or line of work, unusual way of working, out of the box way of thinking, being your own boss is getting qualified. Because means Uranus is a little bit kind of a restless energy. So with this kind of placement, it can actually create problems in making native disciplined, follow a specific routine, a specific regime, or how you amend or make your terms with your juniors, with your subordinates. So their native might face a heat if he is being put forth in those kind of monotonous environment, working with a very monotonous people, because the energies of Uranus wants to manifest itself in a very creative, in a very constructive, in a very out of the box way. So the freedom loving nature of Uranus might feel itself little bit tied down being placed in the 6th house. But let's say friends, for example, if your nature of work or line of work, lot of unusuality, or meeting and dealing with new people, new thoughts, and where you have that creative freedom, then in those kind of circumstances or situation, this placement of Uranus can actually bring wonders in someone's life. With this kind of placement of Uranus in the sixth house, I will not recommend overindulgence in any sort of intoxicants, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, or any sort of intoxicants needs to be avoided, or there has to be proper balance over there. Moving ahead, friends, now let's say for example, if you're going to find the placement of Neptune over here. So again, friends, this is not a very conducive placement because sixth house demands realistic approach towards life. You have to be practical, you have to be hardworking, you have to be realistic. And when we talk about the Neptune energy, it's a very daydreaming, very imaginative energy. So many times what happens is that even when we talk about from the health perspective, so many times people who have those hypochondria related concerns where the disease is only in your mind, the situation is not that worse in outside world in your life, you just have created within your mind. Like the way I still remember that quote which I read somewhere where so that is a kind of wisdom which gets applied with this placement of Neptune in the sixth house. So the so-called those placebo effect is something which gets qualified with this placement of Neptune in the sixth house. So again, friends, I would say the same thing. If Neptune becomes an important planet for you, if your moon is conjunct over here with Neptune, so then I would say then those qualities or tendencies can go higher, where you might come across as a vulnerable or gullible person whom anyone can easily take advantage of. So those are the areas where you have to work. But let's say for example, if your nature of work, your line of work requires lot of creative freedom, being very imaginative, then you can actually do very good. And if your sixth house Neptune is also getting aspected by some malefic planet, being aspected by Saturn, being aspected by Mars, is only going to manifest the better and the realistic side of Neptune only. And lastly, friends, if you're going to find the placement of Pluto over here in the sixth house, so friends, definitely sixth house has got lot of difficulties. Sixth house also has got lot of gifts to offer as well. But when we talk about from the perspective of Pluto, which represents extremities, so definitely, friends, the vulnerability is going to again come over here. And specifically when we talk from the perspective of the outer planets, it's my personal assessment that they gain more power with the kind of planetary presence they are in. So for example, if Pluto is going to be conjunct with Saturn over here, a well-placed, dignified Saturn over here, definitely, friends, it is going to make native very serviceful, a strong healer, where native wants to actually help and bring reformment in the lives of people, and native will be seen as the symbol of hope by other people. But let's say for example, if Pluto is being afflicted over here and it is being conjunct with a debilitated or afflicted Mars, then in those kind of circumstances, self-affliction, self-loathing, frustration, challenges on the account of you dealing with your subordinates, with your juniors, so those or this way the energies of Pluto can also manifest. So it all comes down to in which dignity, in which planetary presence Pluto is present over here in the sixth house. But definitely, friends, the extremities of the energies of Pluto is definitely going to manifest in the sixth house, where it can actually make you a big oppressor, or it can actually make you a big healer at the same time. So that is something, friends, which I wanted to say as my take, my inputs on the different planetary presence in the sixth house of your astrological chart. For furthermore updates and notifications on the divine science of Vedic astrology, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and like my Facebook page. Dhanyawad.